All right, this is the tutorial for those of you who are working on the pole position video. I think this is going to be a great video. We've got a lot of fun things to work on here. Let's talk about the process here. So first of all, on your computer, you should have the folders here for that. You should have your pole position folder here with your 5-folder setup. You've got audio, exports, graphics, media, and projects. Your audio folder will have your audio, mostly just your interview audio from there. It'll also have this voiceover that another student made for you that will help give you some structure to this video. You'll have an empty exports folder, an empty graphics folder, you have an empty projects folder, and you have this media folder that has all of your camera stuff in here, camera A, camera B, and all your fun GoPro footage. So to start this project, let's go ahead and open up Premiere. You can find Premiere down in your dock. If you don't see it there, go to this little magnifying glass and type in Premiere. And let's get Premiere opened up. I'm editing this in Premiere version 23, which is the same as what's on our lab computers. If you're on your own computer and it's a different version, these instructions may look a little bit different, but let's wait for Premiere to boot up. Okay, so we've got Premiere open. Let's go ahead and make a new project. You'll click on New Project. And then at the top left, you'll choose a project, a name for this project. Please call it Pole Position, and then your name, and then Rough Cut. Then under Project Location, really important to click this drop down and do Choose Location. And then on your desktop, you're going to find that 5-folder setup. It says Pole Position, and drop it into that Projects folder. I'm using on my computer, it's in a slightly different folder here because I've got it on a hard drive here, but it should you should see something like this, right? This Pole Position folder here with your 5-folder setup, and the project needs to go in the Projects folder. Do that, click on Choose. Then on the right, these options on the right, copy media, new bin, create new sequence, make sure all of these are not checked. So they should all be gray, not blue. Then click on create. And you should have an empty Premiere project. You've got your 4 main panels here. If you have another panel over here, a panel that looks like this kind of learn panel that's over here on the right, that can kind of take up some space. You don't really need it. So you can click on this little hamburger menu here to close that panel. We just kind of got our 4 main panels here, and we're ready to start doing a little bit of work here. So keep this open, but go down to your Finder icon here, the blue face, and find your folders for audio and your folder for media. Take this audio folder, and you can just click and drag and click into this Projects tab right here. Same thing with your media folder. Just click, drag, and click into this tab right here. This one might take a little while to import because it's bigger files. And there you go. Now by default, the folders you see will probably look in this kind of like icon mode. I like to do it though in this mode right here. It's list mode, so I can see them as lists. This also allows me to click on this little arrow, so I have a little drop down. I can see my files without having to open them in a new like tab or anything like that. So have it in list mode here. Now we need to make a sequence, and we're just going to make a sequence from scratch here to start with. So I'm going to go to File, and then New, and then Sequence. Then you have a bunch of different options here. The one I'm going to choose is Settings. And then under Editing Mode, I'm going to choose Custom. And the time base I'll choose is 2997 frames per second. The frame size will be 1920 by 1080. That's full HD. And then my sequence name down here at the bottom, I want to call this, again, you'll call it Pole Position, Your Name, Rough Cut. And then click OK. Now I've got a sequence. Empty sequence, there's nothing in it, but that's still going to be just fine. I can also see it show up here in my project tab right here. I've got my audio folder, my media folder. Now I've got this little sequence right here. Let's go ahead and make a folder for our sequences. Down here at the bottom right, you'll see a little folder icon. It'll say new bin, and I'll call this sequences. And then I'll just drag this sequence into that folder so it's there, just because I like organization. Now let's click a little drop down next to your audio folder, and you're going to see a few different audio files. These are probably your audio files from those interviews, and this one right here is that voiceover that another student made for you. This voiceover will provide some structure for this video. I'm going to take this and drag it into my first audio track right there. Now it's really tiny. First, I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm going to find my little scroll bar down here and find this wheel and just click and drag to pull that in so I can see a little bit bigger. And also, it's kind of squished. I want this track to be a bit taller. To do that, I need to move my mouse right to the left of the audio itself here and move my mouse in between two tracks. If my mouse is in between two tracks, it'll turn into this funny looking arrow thing. If I click and drag, I can pull that down and see and just make it a little bit bigger. It's also, you might be able to tell just by looking at the waveforms, it's going to be very loud. The person recording it did it in very loud settings. Let's hear it.
Life in the fast lane has never felt closer than...
And it sounds really great, but it's really loud. Since I've made this track a bit taller, since I've made it kind of bigger, I can see this horizontal line, this kind of straight horizontal line right here. And if I move my mouse right over that line, I can see my mouse kind of transforms into this kind of double arrow thing. If I click and drag and pull that down, I can make that a little bit quieter. And that's what I'm going to do.
Does now in Des Moines, Iowa.
I kind of want the bars here to be around the minus 15-ish area at the max.
Has never felt closer than does now in Des Moines, Iowa.
Great. All right, so we have that done there. We've got a little bit there. Now let me just kind of show you how we're going to use this voiceover. As you can see, every time I see these waveforms here, this means that the person is talking. And then every time I don't see any waveforms like this, that means there's a space there, a blank space. And then I see more talking, and then I see a blank space, more talking, blank space. Basically, the structure of this video will be that anytime that the host, the voiceover person, his name is Blake, is speaking, I'm going to see B-roll. I'm going to see B-roll from the track. I see B-roll of people driving around, the B-roll that you filmed. And then anytime he's not speaking, I'm going to make a cut using my cut tool. I'm going to use my arrow here, move this over, and then I'll have some empty space here. And this empty space is where I'm going to put some interview footage, right? Some of the footage from the interview that you filmed of the people that you talked to, maybe the OTF that you recorded or other interview footage that you have there. I'm going to undo that though right now. I don't need that cut right now. If you were doing that with me, you want to undo, you can just go to edit and undo that cut there. Let's actually just zoom in here a bit and kind of see how this video starts, how this voiceover starts.
Life in the fast lane has never felt closer than...
So there's a little bit of empty space here at the beginning. I'm going to cut this out here a little bit. So I'm going to move my playhead right to where this person begins speaking. Then I'll use my cut tool and cut that there. Then use my selection tool to select that area and just cut that. And I can just move this over. And here I have my person speaking.
Life in the fast lane has never felt closer than does now in Des Moines, Iowa.
After he's done speaking, right after he's done speaking, I'm going to make another cut right here. I'll move my cursor right to where he starts speaking again, right about there, make another cut. I'll use my mouse here to cut out this little empty space. Okay, and then I'm just going to move this over a bit. All right. Now over this part here where Blake is talking, it's about how long? It's about 3 or 4 seconds here, 4 or 5 seconds.
The fast lane has never felt closer than does now in Des Moines, Iowa.
I'm going to go ahead and add a couple clips of B-roll here. I want to see something right now. All I have is I'm listening to this person talking. Let's add some B-roll on top of this from the track. So to find the B-roll I want to do, I'm going to uncollapse my media folder here. I've got camera A, camera B, and GoPro. I'm going to show you a way that you can preview footage and choose the couple clips that you want to throw in here. If I double click on the folder here where it says camera A, it's going to open up this folder in its own little tab here. It's going to say bin camera A, and it's in its own little tab, kind of like the tabs on your browser, right? And I can see my clips here. Now, I'm just seeing these clips as a list, but if I want to see them as those cool icons, those big icons, I can go down here to the bottom left and choose icon view, and I can see these as icons now. And so I can see what the clips are. It looks like camera A just had some interview footage and then just a couple little clips of B-roll here. I'm going to go back to this tab here for my camera B1, double click on the folder. It's opening up this bin here. This is where most of my B-roll is. And again, I'll do this in icon view. What I can do is I can see little thumbnails of all of my footage, all of that footage that was filmed with this camera. And actually too, if I move my mouse, if I hover my mouse over the footage, I don't even have to click, I'm just hovering it. I can see kind of a preview of what that clip looked like. And that's kind of cool. That's a lot of fun. What I'm going to do, and then I think my GoPro one as well, I can kind of get a preview of what that kind of looked like here. Again, just doing this icon view for these and kind of just seeing what those look like. So that's a lot of fun, kind of seeing how those looked. Very fun. Okay, so I'm going to choose a couple different clips here that I want to use for this opening. Maybe I'll say I want to use some GoPro footage at the beginning. So I'm going to double click on a clip, and that will allow me to see it up here, and this is called the source panel. And this will allow me to see a bit of footage here. And I'm just going to kind of go through until I find maybe an interesting part of this GoPro footage that I like. It looks like there's like a pass here or something like that. Ooh, yeah. Now it's a little shaky, but no big deal. I'm going to show you how to fix this in a minute. But I'm going to just take a little bit of this footage here. I'm going to do... I don't need this whole clip. This whole clip is very long, right? It's the whole race long. I don't need all of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my playhead over where I want to find the place I actually want to have some footage here. And I can click on this little bracket right here. It says mark in, or I could just use the I key on my keyboard. And then go as long as I want this to go. Maybe to right there. I think I can hear Rob yelling. And then I'm going to, that's all I need there. I'm going to do my O, my mark out, or the letter O on my keyboard. And so I've just chosen this much here. This is this much of this whole clip that I want, and I want to drop it down in here, in this timeline here. To do that, I'm just going to click and drag to drop it. But you might notice a problem. If I try to click and drag this, what's going to happen is this big blue bar on the bottom, this is the audio, and it's going to cover up that voiceover audio that I had, that Blake captured for me. To make it so that doesn't happen, over here on the left, I can see these highlighted things where it says V1, A1, where it says A2, right next to A2, I'm going to click that. What's going to happen now is as I drag this over, that audio track is going to go there underneath that voiceover instead of being right on top of it. Okay, let's take a look at how this looks. Okay, so you could probably tell the audio from that is much louder than the voiceover we have. I need to turn that down a little bit so that I can hear the voiceover, but I can't turn it down because it's so like squished right here. So again, I'm going to move my mouse in between the two tracks and pull that down so it's a bit bigger. I found this line right here. I'm going to hover over that and drag that down so it's not quite so loud. And let's see how this sounds.
Life in the fast lane has never felt closer than it does now in Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay, so we've got that GoPro footage. That's fine. That's fun. And I guess we'll just do this one clip, and we'll just see a little bit of that. But I don't need to see a ton of it. I'm even going to just shorten this down a little bit. So I have my first bit of voiceover, and I have a clip here that I'm showing. The clip probably looks not quite right now, and that's fine. I'm going to show you how to fix that in a minute here, but I want to do some structure stuff first. Let's find the rest of my voiceover and just drag this over here. So
The fast lane has never felt closer than it does now in Des Moines, Iowa.
I'm going to see a little bit of race footage, that sort of thing.
Opened in 2013 and open 365 days a year, Pole Position Raceway, located on the northwest edge of Des Moines, has been the go-to spot for anyone who wants to speed up their life with the help of go-karting.
Okay, so we have this great line here from our voiceover person about what pole position is. This would be a great place to have more B-roll. So I'm just going to grab different B-roll clips that maybe I liked from your shoot here. Maybe something like, I don't know. We'll find some clips here that work. This is a nice kind of overall clip that might be good. I'm just going to in out some of this here. It's a beautiful pan. And drop this down in here. Again, I might need to turn down the volume on it so it doesn't overpower that voiceover.
Opened in 2013 and open 365 days a year, Pole Position Race.
And just make sure that, each of those B-roll clips you choose, we have short attention spans. And so we don't want to see like, a 15 or 20 second long B-roll clip. Each B-roll clip might only need to be like 3 or 4 seconds long is all you need to have. And just make sure you're getting a good variety of distances and kind of taking advantage of all the variety of the shots that you filmed. Let's see here. I might have a nice. Oh, this is great. I love this shot where I can actually see someone crossing the finish line. That's great. I'm going to drop that in here too. And again, because it's so loud, I'm going to make sure I'm turning down the volume on all those B-roll clips here. So I'm just choosing a handful here and kind of, going with whatever makes sense here. I like shots that have some action, I like this little rack focus, that's great. So I'll maybe get that little rack focus in there. And I'm just kind of picking. You can pick different footage. You can pick different footage, of course. Definitely just up to you. I have this is a nice little tilt right here. I'm just kind of using my in and out controls to pick that up. And what I've done is basically, so I have Blake speaking for a while, and I have I've chosen 4 B-roll clips to go above it,
with the help of go-karting.
And I've kind of filled that out. What I'm going to do now is I have this is where kind of this green part is where Blake is kind of done speaking. Then I will use my cut tool to cut that out. I'm going to cut out this empty space here. Then I will use my selection tool to take that empty space out. Let's see what the next thing our voiceover person is going to say.
Mike Burnell, the president of Team 1 Karting at Pole Position Raceway in Des Moines, talked about what led him to opening go-karting locations around the country.
So this next bit here is where Mike is going to tell us what led him to do go-karting.
Mike Burnell.
So over where it's saying Mike Burnell, I might not show Mike yet. Maybe I'll show 1 or 2 clips of him. But really, I'm going to just do the same thing I just did here. So over this part where Blake is speaking, I'm going to get more B-roll. But then at this point here, since I've introduced Mike, in this empty space here, I'm going to cut out this empty space as well. Whoops. And I'm going to delete that. I'm going to move over some voiceover stuff here.
Mike Burnell, the president of Team 1 Karting at Pole Position.
So we've got, again, just more of the voiceover. I'm going to do the same thing, just have more B-roll on top of this voiceover. I'm not going to go through all that B-roll right now. I will just find a clip that makes sense, just that I can drop over here, just for the sake of being able to get this tutorial wrapped up for you. But we're just going to have B-roll here, and then after this chunk here where Blake introduced Mike Burnell, in this empty space here is where we're going to have some of that interview with Mike. But in order to do that, we need to make a sequence, a different sequence for that interview. So go to your Camera A bin, your Camera A bin that you might have open already. And if you don't have that open, you can go to your project panel here and find this Camera A folder, and you can just double click to open that tab here. I'm going to find Mike here. I've got my interview footage of Mike. I know that this guy is Mike, and it's my interview footage. But I actually need to make a new sequence out of this clip. So I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to go to New Sequence from Clip. And it has made a new sequence. You can actually see it here. So instead of having my rough cut tab open, it's opened up this this sequence tab of Mike speaking. That's fine. I can just have that open for now. But I do want to rename it. So in my Camera A bin, I have my footage here. It ends with MP4. Then I have this sequence that it just made, and it has just a bunch of numbers as its name. If I click on those numbers, I can change this. And I am going to change this. I'm going to call this Interview. Or maybe I'll call it Mike. Maybe I'll call it Mike Interview. And that's the name of this sequence now. So this is a sequence called Mike Interview. The reason I made a sequence is because I also need to replace the audio from this camera, which is not very good, with the higher quality audio that you recorded off camera. So I'm going to go into my project tab here on the left, my project tab here. I'm going to just drop down this little Camera A folder here and find this sequence that I just made. And I'm going to drop it into my sequences folder. Then I'm going to find my audio folder here, just do a little drop down here, and I'm going to figure out which one of these audio files is Mike speaking. I think it's probably this first one.
Can you introduce yourself with what? Did you originally start this?
And have helped open 74 centers around the country, and I've owned a few, and now.
Okay, so we've got Mike speaking. Unfortunately, that music is really cranking really loud behind him, but there's not really anything we can do about that. I'm going to take this audio clip, though. I'm going to drag it underneath my video track of Mike speaking. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just click and drag over both of them to select them, and then right click, and I'm going to choose to synchronize. I'm going to synchronize by audio. What I'm going to do is I'm going to synchronize the good quality audio with the kind of bad quality audio from the camera. Hit OK. All right, and now I've synchronized the audio from the recorder from your Soundtech with the audio from the camera.
2001.
Nice.
And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure these are all the same length now. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm going to get this blue track here so it's the same length as the green one here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here, just so that they're the same length here. And next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the camera audio, the audio that was recorded by the camera, and replace it with the audio from the better microphone that we did. I'm going to click on anything that's blue here, and then I'm just going to, on my keyboard, do Command L. What it's going to do is it's going to unlink these two, so they're not linked together anymore. Then I can just click on my blue audio and hit delete to delete that. Now I'm going to select the blue and the green and do Command L, and now these two are linked together. So if I move the blue, the green goes with it, and those are synchronized.
Cool. We're good to go.
Okay.
Can you introduce yourself with your name and occupation?
Okay. Now, of course, again, I don't need the entire interview in this space. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to zoom out here, and it's a good idea to just watch the interview and decide what's a good, like, high-impact quote from this interview that I can put in this space right here. So right after I've introduced Mike in my voiceover,
Opening go-karting locations around the country.
you know, after he wanted to talk about how he wanted to open go-karting locations, I'm going to find a quote here that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm not going to find a quote for you right now. I'm just going to choose something arbitrarily. But once I've found a quote that I like, I'm going to use my razor tool and just do a cut and find where he said something good. Of course, watch it yourself and decide. And then once you've found a quote, a key quote you want to use, you can just cut it out and then highlight it. Then choose right-click and copy. Then go to your rough cut sequence, and I can just paste it right in here. Now, here's what happened when I did that. When I pasted it in there, I accidentally covered up some of my voiceover. I definitely don't want to do that. So I'm going to take my voiceover and move it over a bit more so it's not in the way. I'll move my playhead so it's in this empty space here, and then just Command V to paste in some of that interview right there. Then I'll just drag this right there so I'm not don't have any empty space in between these two, and let's see how that looks.
The country.
Pole Position Raceway recently sold, so I'm the only one left. Other than us, we're the only one left. I lived here and was friends with them.
So we have that quote from him, and this might even be too long, this quote that I chose here. Maybe I just have, like, you know, a couple second long quote, and then I can cut that, and then we have some of that interview. I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to go back to my voiceover. I'm going to pull over some of my voiceover here, and I'm just going to keep doing that same thing I was doing. So what I'm going to do is I have some more voiceover of Blake talking.
He also opened up about what led to the Iowa location.
So I have Blake talking, the voiceover person talking about something else. I can again show more B-roll there, and then I can, in this blank space here is where I would put more of this interview footage, and just picking out the best parts of this interview that makes sense for this. That is basically the process that you'll do. So I've done kind of the first part of this, but just to explain this again, anywhere where you see these waveforms here, you'll have some B-roll or something like that, some B-roll from the track. And then anywhere where there aren't any waveforms, where it's silent, what you'll do is you will cut those parts, cut out the silent parts, you know, create some space here, put in an interview quote or something like that here, and then go back to B-roll. That can give you a basic general structure of what this video can look like. Make sure to listen to the voiceover once or twice before you begin editing, just so you can kind of get an idea of what the best quotes might be. And if you want to read the interview, if you want to read a transcript of your interview, you can find that in week 14 of our Blackboard page, just right here where it says Travel Show Interview Transcripts. The pole position transcript is right here. So if you'd rather read that interview transcript and get an idea of what you talked about in that interview, that's fine too. Okay, so the rough cut will be not just what I did. You will do what I did, but for all of this as well. So you're going to have B-roll, spaces where you'll have interview footage, all of that kind of stuff. That's what goes into the rough cut. So the rough cut is about 80% of the editing that you'll do for this project. All right. So when you've completed this project, then when you have from start to finish, you have footage, you've got interview bits here. If there are bits of the voiceover that you want to remove or don't make sense, that's fine. It's not the end of the world for me, but we should have a complete video here, and the voiceover just provides you some structure. When that's completed, when you're ready to submit, these are the steps to submit this. So you'll need to make sure that this sequence is open. This pole position one is the one you're looking at. Then go to File. Actually, I'm sorry, you can just go up to this little Export tab right here. And let's export this. So the file name will be pole position, your name, rough cut. The location, you'll need to click on that blue text there, and then by default you might see this kind of small looking window right here. Click on this little arrow here to make that bigger. Then find your pole position folder, and that exports folder is where you're going to save it. Click on Save. The preset, the match source is fine. The format should be H.264, and then you can just click on Export. Once that export is completed, you can go ahead and quit Premiere. So I will just go up to Premiere Pro and choose Quit Premiere Pro. My folder setup, you're going to see some new stuff. You're going to see these two new folders here, these auto previews, auto save folders. Go ahead and drop these into that projects folder. And then you might see your Premiere project show up here for some reason. Just drop that into your projects folder as well. In your exports folder, you'll see something new. You're going to see that export that you just made. This is what you'll submit, but you won't submit it directly to Blackboard. So to submit it, you'll need to go to our Blackboard page, then go to Shared Files. Then inside of Shared Files, of course, find our Fall 22 folder, the Travel Show folder, and the Pole Position folder. Then find the Exports folder right here, and this is where you'll drop your export. So take your export and just drop it in there. Don't move away from this page until you're sure that the export has finished uploading. You can tell if you look up here where it says uploading, you can click on it as well to see a progress bar. Once that is done uploading, then you can just go back to Blackboard, find the assignment here, and all you need to submit is just a note letting me know that you've submitted the assignment. I think you've got a great project to work with. I think you learned a lot in the process, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Good luck.